Welcome to With Thunderous Applause, a podcast where two friends get together and talk about the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co-host, Zach.
Hello, I am sick. It is bad.
I've
I'm
had
gonna
a
have to.
headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. And I don't want to complain too much because Lord knows what could cause that. I think it's a sudden onset of additional, what they call second winter in California.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be blowing my nose, but at least I'm not gonna be blowing out polyvinyl chloride or
That's
phosgene
right.
gas.
I was going to say, it really is subjective, right? Oh,
It
God, I'm
is,
kind of
yeah.
miserable, but
At least I don't have to worry about the future of my children. I mean, I
all right.
do. But...
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, that was it.
Cool. So welcome to Shooting the Poodoo, our Thursday night news segment. Today we're going to cover just a couple stories. Hopefully be wrapped up in an hour and a half. We're going to do an update on the train derailment. We did mention it last Thursday, I believe. Just wanted to catch folks up and maybe have a further discussion now that more details are known and kind of the gravity of the situation is a little more clear. And then also heard a little bit about this on Valentine's Day. There was a hearing for an FCC, Federal Communications Commission appointee. I wanted to check in on that, see why that's even relevant. And then lastly, no, we have two stories, right? You got one too, right?
No. I'm actually going to skip that out. I was reading over it more, and I need more time. It is actually really, really interesting, and it could almost take up an entire episode on its own.
Oh, perfect. So we might
But
do
we
a
will
one
talk
more.
about some of the balloon stuff, and I've lovingly titled the episode "Poodoo on the Water and Balloons in the Sky." Do do do
Poodoo on the water, balloons in the sky.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, man.
Right.
Tell me what we're starting with. What story do you want to do first?
Well, we could do the Scientific American, I think. I don't know
Does
if you
that mean
want
I
to
have
pull it
to
up
pull
on.
something up?
I don't know if you want to pull it up on. I was going to say I don't know if you want to pull it up on yours, or we could start with the video from our great president. While you do that,
Yeah, let me
let's go
pull
ahead
up
and do that.
Scientific American.
Yeah. I'll start with Biden while you're doing that.
We
Okay, I
don't
got it
yet
up.
know exactly what
Nope.
these three objects were, but nothing right now suggests they were related to China's spy balloon program or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country. The intelligence community's current assessment is that these three objects were most likely balloons tied to private companies, recreation, or research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research. When I came into office, I instructed our intelligence community to take a broad look at the phenomenon of unidentified aerial objects.
Yep.
We know that a range of entities, including countries, companies, and research organizations, operate objects at altitudes for purposes that are not nefarious, including legitimate scientific research. I want to be clear. We don't have any evidence that there has been a sudden increase in the number of objects in the sky. We're now just seeing more of them, partially because the steps we've taken to increase our radars, to narrow our radars. And we have to keep adapting our approach to dealing with these challenges. That's why I've directed my team to come back to me with sharper rules for how we will deal with these unidentified objects moving forward.
Sharp poking.
Distinguishing between those that are likely to pose safety and security risks that necessitate action and those that do not. But make no mistake, if any object presents a threat to the safety and security of the American people, I will take it down.
He will take it down.
Initial thoughts.
Well, earlier in the video, we didn't clip it, but he talks about objects above our country around the world. And I'm just like, yeah, that pretty much explains American imperialism right there. We think of all the different areas that we set up bases in as our country, just somewhere else in the world. It's like, dude, you can't even fucking say the quiet part quiet. You just screaming out loud that we're fucking trying to take over everywhere.
Yeah, man. So my thoughts on that are a lot. When we presented on the balloon story, like the day it happened,
Yeah.
we kind of said, "Oh, it's probably a weather balloon." Said, but also I think we said, but it also looks like the media is trying to goad him into being tough on China.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about that very last part. He's like, "Well, it's not really a big deal." And we're like, we literally like shot it down and we're looking at it and it's not a big deal.
But I will shoot more down, damn it.
Right. And yeah, and so it was probably scientific, and then they said, "Oh, you're seeing more now because of the way that we're filtering radar. We're looking for more things like it
Yeah.
instead of tuning out all the noise."
Right.
And most of the systems are digital. Like I think I mentioned it last podcast, didn't I? That we could filter, we could, if we wanted to see,
Height,
this is my proof
size,
against
everything.
chemtrails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Filtering by height and size. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, especially the new digital systems, the old analog radars were really pain in the ass to tune, but you got like tons of noise on them. And the new digital systems use computers to filter it out. So now
Right.
you can just set filter parameters and you can turn them all off, and then you'll see all the noise.
Right.
But that's what they're doing. So far, I did hear something, and I find the source suspicious. I think it's like a Taiwanese nationalist that has like a YouTube channel or a blog or something, who's saying that, oh, these balloons are meant to like keep an eye on everything on the US basically and other countries potentially, to watch US military movements globally to see how they respond when China invades Taiwan. It's like it's going to happen, and this is just the precursor.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Which could very well be true, but from what I gathered, and we'll if you switch over to the Scientific American, I don't know if you could see it. Did you say
We
click the
can
little
see it
book?
now.
No.
No, it doesn't work. I tried it out. Bing and Chrome suck. Brave is great.
Okay, we'll look at getting me a different browser so we can filter some of these ads and shit out of here. And also, so hopefully I can get around paywalls like Reuters. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a lot. And I've considered like maybe with like one of the, I think it's like Bloomberg costs like $1 a month or something.
Yeah, I don't want to keep
Like,
any
I
money.
could see spending $4 or $5 on access to like good news sites.
Yeah.
But I don't want to freaking give you my email address just to like read like an article.
I think it was the New York Post. They wanted my email address. So I did eatmyass@analingus.com. And
Was it a real one?
worked. No, it's fake.
But it worked.
They didn't even ask for me to like verify the email, but it worked. Yeah. But if you look over on the control room, you can see
Clip this.
Well, if you look, that's the same article on Brave with dark mode on. No ads and no picture. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Over in the control room. Yeah, it's much cleaner.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'll have to do that. And Brave is the browser.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is freaking amazing.
I'm sold. We'll figure that out because I would love that compared to this. All right, on February 4th, the U.S. shot down a massive Chinese surveillance balloon. The U.S. has since recovered sensors and other electronic equipment, which indicate it was likely used for eavesdropping on electronic signals. I liked that part, saying that it was surveillance balloon looking at electronic signals. And you go a little further down.
Mm-hmm.
He says the same thing: radar detecting objects. All the weather balloons that we mentioned earlier. They say they release 100 National Weather Service sites release balloons twice a day.
Right, and that's just that one weather service.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something else I heard. So since last week, government representatives have announced among the many balloons in our skies, some may have been Chinese spying platforms. Some may have been.
Yes, may have been.
At least 2018, there does seem to be this broad Chinese balloon surveillance program. This is something I learned and that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
the Canadian prepper thing where he was reading off this woman who seemed to have kind of be like a Taiwanese nationalist, and so therefore take it with a grain of salt, right?
Mm-hmm.
But while he was talking about this, like, I guess fairly well-known balloon program, China has been investing part of their military expenditures into like an entire I think it's an entire command. I'm not sure how they structure their military, but it's like almost like a US Space Force kind of thing, except they call it like stratospheric something or other. You might look it up. But at any rate, I thought it was really interesting because China has spent very little on its military, right? Like very little. We've looked at that weeks ago. Um, but China has also been intensely focused on investing its resources into industrialization, right? Like
Yeah.
into raising its people out of poverty, right?
Right.
And so to me, I've just found that fascinating how, like, if you look at like a nation state, um, they all have this imperative to protect their national sovereignty, right? And to exist within an international system of largely competitors, right? With these overlapping systems of non-aggression agreements or whatever, right? But China has decided that like we can spend very little on the military while also
1.3%.
being very effective by investing in low tech solutions to military problems like signals intel,
Yep.
right? Whereas the US fields a U-2 spy plane that has to have mechanics and pilots and air crew flight safety equipment people who are experts in like packing the suits and ensuring they're operable,
Right.
right? And all these things, plus, I mean, U-2s use comparably less fuel. That's what actually they have these huge wingspans and they fly at like super high altitude. So they burn comparably less fuel. I'm not really so sure about the Global Hawk, which is like it's like it looks like a Predator drone, but it's like 6 or 8 times the size, and it's also a high altitude surveillance platform that's a drone. Um, I'm not sure how many of those are deployed, but the U-2 is still in use because the U-2 was monitoring the balloon that was coming into Canada earlier this week on the jet stream, just so happened to be.
Okay.
But at any rate, like China's just like, okay, cool, we can field a balloon for $100,000,
Right.
and so they could do hundreds of balloons for the price of maintaining like a handful of U-2s, right?
Yeah. And launching small satellites into space that have, similar capabilities, things like that. Like the little mini sets that are being created nowadays are pretty damn handy and
Mhm.
cost relatively little to send into space.
Yeah. But I just thought that was actually interesting because it is apparently true. They do have a large surveillance balloon program.
Yep.
And I just thought it was really interesting to think of the economics of that, right? The US and how like the US just loves its largesse, right? Everything's bigger in Texas kind of thing.
Yeah.
Except in the United States, our military is bigger, even if it's not as effective, just because we like our shiny toys.
Well, and that's a great point. We're kind of mad about balloons flying over our territory, but we've got, it's like we don't have balloons flying over their territory. No, you have planes that cost small fortunes to fly. Like you could probably buy a house for like 10 different people for an hour of flight time.
Dude, yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
jets are crazy. Crazy expensive to maintain and operate and
yeah,
upgrade and all those things. Anyway, I thought that was interesting.
it is. It is
Um,
pretty. It is pretty telling how countries that refuse to spend a whole lot on militaries rapidly become world powers in other ways, like Germany post World War II. Now they're a massive banking country. Japan post World War II, they're a massive technological company. China just kind of didn't really get involved in too much of it. I mean, they had their own wars and all that, but they're not overly involved in direct confrontation. And so they're able to, like you say, bring a whole bunch of people out of poverty really, really quick because
Yeah.
they just industrialized and utilized all the knowledge that they gained from other people doing so to do it faster and better.
Yeah, for sure. And they, it's a brutal process. So a lot
Yeah.
of people suffered in that process to do it as quickly as they did. We did it took 3 times longer. Britain took 3 times longer, and it was
Yeah.
still an
Brutal.
absolutely brutal process to industrialize.
Yeah.
People are disposable. But at any rate, I thought that was really just kind of interesting to kind of think of and provide opportunities for us to think of. How do you do that? We talked many moons ago. We've almost been doing this a year, dude.
Pretty damn close.
Yeah, and one of our first videos, I think, around this time, maybe March or April last year, we were talking about how ISIS was using like fucking drones with little bomblets, and guess what they're doing in fucking Ukraine? Drones with little bomblets.
Almost, yeah.
And so like in China's like we don't want to spend like we want to spend our money on our people. Why would we spend it on our fucking military? We have no
Right.
imperial ambitions. And they're like, but we still need this capacity to protect our national sovereignty, which is an obligation as a nation state in the international system on planet Earth. And so they just are like, okay, well, balloons can be pretty effective and they're cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do that. It fulfills this need. And that's like, it's building the tool for the job rather than building the job for the tool, right? Like the US needs to make military conflicts because it puts a lot of money into this large military, while other countries who don't have command of as many resources choose lower tech, less expensive technologies because they build the tool for the job rather than the job for the tool, if that makes sense.
I believe that does absolutely make sense.
Yeah, that's
Because
why we have to have so many wars. We build a big military, so we got to find wars.
when you have F-22s, everything needs to be a target. No, that hammer, nail, something along those lines. Yeah,
Yeah, come back to this article so we can finish it up real quick.
we're there.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
Great. So this is what we kind of talked about. Why are they seeing more of them? What do we know about the objects that were shot down? Not a lot. At a White House press briefing on Monday, National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, John Kirby, said the objects did not appear to maneuver or move under their own propulsion, like a weather balloon, which suggests they may have been balloons. This remains the most likely explanation, although some reports suggest the object shot down Friday broke apart on impact, which could mean it was another type of flying vehicle.
Yeah, so it was like a dirigible. It had a solid structure attached to a floopy balloon.
Yeah, a floopy balloon. Yes, exactly. They said it could have been something like that. This is the point I wanted to get to. According to Kirby, these 3 objects also did not appear to be sending out communications or to carry any crew, which adds to the theory that they were innocuous, perhaps even research balloons that merely drifted off course. But if they were so harmless, why did the U.S. shoot them down? One answer provided by NORAD is these objects were flying at 20 to 40,000 feet, potentially posing a risk to civilian airplanes. To be clear, this is the other 2 or 3 that were shot down after. The first one was shot down between 60 and 65,000 feet. So when we were saying this isn't even in controlled airspace,
we were still right.
That was still factual.
Yeah.
These did not make it to U.S. airspace because they got permission from Canada, which I always thought NORAD was like the top secret base in Colorado, but apparently it's just a defense pact between the U.S. and Canada.
Yes.
I had no idea. I thought NORAD was the fucking bunker in Colorado, right? Like war games and shit.
No, man. It's how we defend against Santa Claus every year. Fucker comes into our airspace.
The fucker's allowed in. It's like he filed for a visa.
He's got a work visa.
At any rate, I did just want to clarify that this earlier statements we made about the altitude were still correct for that particular balloon. Since then, there's been others. These weren't necessarily in our airspace, but at 20 to 40,000 feet could potentially cause problems in Canadian airspace. At any rate,
And we've got the weapons to blow
yeah,
them
here you go.
down. Canada may or may not.
So yeah, I just wanted to that point there where he said they didn't appear to be sending out communications or to carry any crew. So my question to you then is because it's a balloon, it's not being propelled, right?
Right.
So if it's not capable of beaming, like transmitting information using radio frequencies or whatever, then how the fuck could it be a spy balloon?
I
Because
mean,
it's not like they can just, oh, it'll come back. It's not like a drone or something that can fly back to its original point, right?
yeah, the only thing you can do is similar to how the weather balloons are used, where they send them up, they get their data, they fly until basically they pop due
Mm-hmm.
to pressure changes, and
Yep.
then you have a GPS tagger on them, and then you go grab the GPS tagger. You
Right,
find
but
out where it is, you pick it up, and you process all the data.
yeah,
So, but I mean,
exactly.
but a
For
spy balloon is going to pop and go who knows where. It could
right,
land in anyone's country, and then you got to pick it up from wherever it lands. It's not a very effective spy platform.
precisely. Especially if it's not able to transmit. And some might
Yeah,
be like, well, they're just testing our airspace. Well, if they were testing our airspace, they've done it a bunch already.
yeah,
We do know that. At least like a half a dozen times, 3, 4, 5 times, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
At any rate, come back to Docking Bay 94 or whatever.
Darn, Bay
And then
94.
we'll set up for the next.
Yeah.
Anyway, just wanted to update on that. And say, hey, we still don't know a whole lot, but what we do know looks like we were kind of right at the beginning, and we're like, hey, media, stop being fucking so insane about this. But
Right. Well,
we
I mean,
just have
and
to live in this constant state of fear. I've heard, and reasonably so, people are like, oh, well, we have a space force now, and what better way to like need to invest in the space force than having stuff that's above our fucking other air force, that our other air force
yeah,
can't deal with.
yeah, it's all pretty fucking stupid. Um,
Although I think, dude, if balloons can get us to like high atmosphere, would that not be like a way of delivering spacecraft
that has been
with
looked into.
less
It is
fuel?
not. Yeah, it's been looked into. It's not out of the question. It just doesn't really net you very much because
Mm.
the amount of space left to go after like 60,000 feet. That's what
No. Some high
12 months.
altitude balloons can go higher than that.
Okay, I mean, there's like
I think so.
150 miles until you're in space, I think, and
Oh,
60,000. Yeah, 60,000 feet's only like I don't know how far up is the
12.
ISS.
12 ish, right? 11? It's
Well,
150 miles.
227 says 227 nautical miles, 420 kilometers.
Oh,
How much
oh shit.
is how many is let's say 20 miles. 32. So 32 minus or subtract over 420. Yeah, you still got like 380-ish to go. So the benefit of like carrying it up, you're getting through a fair amount of the atmosphere, and so you get rid of the drag. But then it adds a lot of complications. What if the balloons fail? Can the rockets fire in time and correct course and all that stuff? And you got to keep the rocket facing or facing upward the entire time. It's been looked into, and it's not great,
Okay.
but people look into it. People try it. So I mean,
All right.
yeah.
Well, very cool. What's our next story?
Well, probably the thing that we should be talking about a lot more, and that is how America can't even handle its own shit. Maybe it should worry about domestic affairs.
There have been numerous reports in recent days of respiratory issues, burning eyes, and dead wildlife, including at least 3,500 confirmed dead fish killed by contamination.
We don't have any evidence of non-aquatic species suffering from the derailment.
5 of the train cars were carrying vinyl chloride, a highly combustible chemical linked to a higher risk of some kinds of cancers. Crews conducted a controlled release of the carcinogen.
So basically, here we are worrying about things beyond our control pretty much, and our own
So
people are suffering greatly.
when I said, "What are we doing next?" That was the opportunity to be like, "All right, next we're going to talk about do a quick update on the Ohio train derailment. This is what we understand what's happening. Here's a couple clips to talk about it."
Well, there you go. We'll do that in the future. 1 second. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we got going on for now, and then we'll continue the clip.
Where's the
That
second part of that?
This is it.
Okay, great.
are aging and in some ways weakening infrastructure around rail transport is used to transport vast quantities of these kinds of toxic chemicals, and that it's even possible to have an incident like this. I don't call it an accident, and I don't call it an accident because it's inevitable that there are going to be derailments and spills given what we're doing. So I do think that there's some strengthening that needs to happen there. I also think there are limits to what the federal government will be able to do to address the needs of the community. But it's very important that those community members, if they're observing things, if they believe that they have animals that are dying, if they're observing health problems,
Oh, you missed
that they
it.
document.
It's
So,
all good. Yeah, I think the point of the second half of that clip was I thought it was really important to emphasize. She's like, there's not a lot the government can do about this because this is just a consequence of, I mean, she mentioned infrastructure, right?
yeah,
But otherwise, this is a consequence of having to move because our industrial society requires we move super toxic shit around.
right.
And inevitably accidents happen. I found some figures, I don't have them up. I think I had mentioned the last time we brought this up, Monday maybe, or last Thursday, that like when I looked at it, it was something like 1,000 derailments a year, and they're just so common. The NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, the investigative agency that looks into transportation accidents, in rail and boats and in aircraft, especially. Um, they don't even look at most of them
Right.
because
Well,
they simply can't. There are so many, they don't even send investigators.
So many miles of rail. I was After this happened, I was sitting at a rail crossing, just waiting for the train to go by, and I noticed that the rail was flexing because one of the beams was slightly out of place. Like the support underneath it had eroded away a bit, and so it's just dipping down, maybe like 2 centimeters. Every time a car passes over it,
Yeah,
and it's not
trains are
huge.
heavy. I think some of
Yeah,
that movement is like because it would be there's too much weight to like
it,
maintain a
it,
rigid thing. So kind of like
yeah, it's
earthquake
definitely
standards,
engineered
right?
into it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely engineered into it. But I mean, I also think back to being a kid and walking along the railroads, which, by the way, is illegal because you're trespassing. But walking along the railroads and finding all the railroad ties where the spikes had come out, and it's like nobody walks, those rails and replaces the spikes and all that stuff. We just had a
They
bunch of Chinese and Irishmen who went ahead and did it all for us over 100 years ago, and we haven't probably done very much maintenance on it at all.
They maintain Union Pacific. I see them maintaining all the time. And they have, it's actually kind of cool. They got these big machines, but you're right. There are so many lines of track, and some of them
Yeah,
are in such remote areas. Not all of them are being serviced as often as needed. I have
right.
definitely seen they have a machine that reaches a claw down and grabs a tie and pulls it out while it's shoving another one in. And it's like, it's fucking crazy. And then it hammers spikes. And then there's like crews that kind of like have sledges that kind of like it might overshoot and they fucking hit it a couple times to like line it back up. It's crazy. And then part of like their entourage train because they're on the tracks, right? Part of their entourage is like a little brake car. It's got fucking porta shitter in it and stuff for the
Nice.
crew. At any rate, I do think you're right that there's too much to be maintained. But what she was saying was just kind of like it reminded me to our talk Monday about nuclear power and how when you scale it up,
Hmm.
right, that you increase, you're like, accidents are going to happen. And she's like, there's not a lot the government can do to outright stop train accidents because, like, our economy requires us move dangerous things by train. And dude, trains carrying like lumber down from Canada, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
still fucking dangerous if it flips over. Plus, a lot of train accidents are caused by fucking at grade crossings because people are
Mm.
fucking dumb. And not every there's so many crossings. Again, they put the little ding, 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 and the little bars that drop. They put those at
Yeah.
places with higher traffic. But you go out in the fucking country, they might not even have a barrier at all. It might just be some lights.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
because you don't need it, and that all costs
there's
money,
not
and
that many
that
people.
also is infrastructure that needs to be checked and maintained and all that stuff.
Yep, signaling systems, absolutely, 100%, man. And we don't. And I thought this whole thing. I don't know how much you've read about it. Have you read much?
The train itself, or the
No, just
horrible.
about the incident and after, not necessarily just the kind of toxic release, but also how it's being managed.
I get a little bit of it. I've seen some of the paperwork that, like, uh, Norfolk or Norfolk Southern has been sending out, to people in the affected areas, where it's like, hey,
Mm.
we'll do air monitoring in your house, but you indemnify us for coming into your property. It doesn't, as far as I can tell from reading it, it's a very short thing. As far as I can tell from reading it, it doesn't say, like, by signing this, you're waiving your rights should the air quality be bad. It sounds more like you're waiving your rights if we come into your house and
Twist an ankle.
yeah, yeah, like twist an ankle, or if we break something in your house, almost, like it's like, oh yeah, we might swing something and knock over your antique. Sounds like it's that, but at the same time, it's really bad optics to just not be like, hey, we'll install this for you and cover any damage that we do in the process.
Yeah. And air sampling is happening. We're gonna pull up NTSB and EPA reports on the
Yes.
incident in a second. I did want to share a Common Dreams article
Yeah.
that talks a little bit about this. Residents of East Palestine, Ohio, are voicing alarm and mistrust of officials after a 150 car train carrying hazardous materials crashed in their small town, prompting emergency evacuations. Norfolk Southern has insisted public health is not at risk, a sentiment echoed by local authorities. Just 5 days after the fiery crash, top officials, including the governor, DeWine, effectively gave an all clear, telling them it was safe to return. And the point I wanted to make with that was that people don't trust officials for good fucking reason.
Oh yeah, in
Like,
that video we were just watching, like prior to where it picked up for us, the guy was, or there was an official stating, "Hey, things are fine, but I would drink bottled water if I were you."
that was the governor, yeah, and during
Oh,
the press
okay,
briefing. Yeah, and
great.
the only reason we kind of broke that up is because I think that was, like, CBS or some other
Yeah,
corporate
yeah, I
group.
don't
They're
want to.
just trying
Yeah, I
to
don't wanna do- yeah.
avoid, copyright, although I'm sure we could argue fair use.
Oh yeah,
I'm just trying to avoid it if we can.
in these trying
Uh,
times.
yeah, exactly, and also, like, yeah, I guess it was relevant. They did, count, like, 3,500, dead fish. In that earlier in that press briefing too, they said, "Oh, well, it's only affecting aquatic creatures," but then we have social media. So, and the local news is also covering a lot of it, like the local paper and local news stations
Mhm.
from the region are, I guess, doing really great reporting on it and actually talking to a lot of people and getting a lot of stories out. Um, but it just kind of ties into this theme of ours that, like, shit is getting worse, and, like, we're kind of, there's this incentive for the ruling class to like the government and corporations to just kind of be like, we don't know what to do because they're really complex problems that require a lot of work to fix. And in some cases you can't fix, right? But no one has the political courage to say what that woman had previously said, which is like, if you want to have water piped to your fucking faucet, get over it. I mean, as cold as that is, like, that's what vinyl chloride is used for. Polyvinyl chloride is PVC, the fucking piping material. So if you want water, your water main, which is usually like an 8-inch pipe, right? That the city lays, PVC. In fact, I was looking at life cycle analysis for PVC just to kind of see if that's accounted for, just because it's kind of a, I don't know, something I'm into at the moment. And anyway, I was looking at that, and they only provided the life cycle assessment for the mains pipe, not all the plumbing in your house, right? And so it makes the plumbing in your house, it makes mains pipe, it makes vinyl windows, like in cheap production construction and or like replacement to single pane windows. Like most people get vinyl because it's the cheapest. That's fucking PVC. So unless you want to give up having water in at your tap and windows and doors that are made of PVC or other kinds of products like that, then you have to like accept the fact that like they're going to have to move it by train, and every once in a while a train will fucking car will jump the track because there's no way to make it 100% safe.
Yeah,
and that's the fucking sad reality of it.
Well, and it's in fucking everything. It's like you said, you know, picture, if you will, a house that has been purchased by someone who then wishes to flip it. It has old windows and they replace them with dual pane windows. That white plastic material, that's PVC.
100%.
Then the window, the pipe that delivers water to the grass in your yard or your apartment complex. Yeah.
Yep.
The stuff that's under your sink, it's all PVC. And we need tons of it. Because the other alternatives are metal, and metal is hugely expensive.
Yeah, and it's also not necessarily the greatest. As someone who had my galvanized drain line replaced with plastic drain line because it corrodes, and plastic doesn't really do that. In fact, that's part of the problem.
It sticks around forever.
Around.
Well, that's the thing is like, one of the worst environments in the world is the ocean, and plastic laughs at the ocean.
Yeah. And so like it's this kind of thing because we've had COVID and like when the government's like, Seymour Hersh is lying about the US being involved in the destruction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, right? Like, he's lying. And it's like, bro, like y'all tried to like escalate in Syria by claiming a chemical attack that never fucking happened, and you tried to cover it up. Y'all like provoked fucking Ukraine and then say it was Russia invaded unprovoked, which like even my fucking right-wing parents are like, yeah, no, that was transparently provoked. Like I don't know anybody that buys that, but they say it over and over and over again.
Well,
right?
Say it till it's true.
Right, exactly. The big lie we talked about.
Yeah.
But like, and so with the COVID vaccine as well, like all sorts of lies around that. You had to do FOIA requests to figure out. Actually, it wasn't unanimous consent of all the people thinking about it that it was zoonotic and not potentially lab leak. Like they're just like, oh no, we all believe this, and if you don't believe this, then that's misinformation, and you're an idiot for believing misinformation or whatever.
Yeah,
Turns out no, there wasn't consensus at all. In fact, it leaned towards lab leak.
Yeah, and the only thing I can think of there is like, hey, we're already dealing with something terrible. Let's not throw a biological attack into the mix. Even though it wouldn't have been a biological attack, it would have been a biological leak.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It wasn't an attack at all. I don't think anybody claimed it was. It was a
Oh,
fucking
oh,
accident.
oh, people claimed
Again,
it, dude. People claimed it.
play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Love stupid prizes. Yay.
Do gain of function research, have global pandemic. Fucking transport toxic ass shit via train, have toxic ass train accidents. You
Oh,
can't
my
have
God.
one without the other, my friend.
Yeah.
And the thing about people mistrusting is it's so fucking scary because in the grand scheme of things, like this is how fucking, as we've talked about QAnon and other things, like it's people who don't trust institutions. It's institutions proving themselves to be untrustworthy. Right?
Right. Yeah.
You're not wrong to mistrust. It makes it very difficult for society to function. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're absolutely right. And it makes me think of the character, I think it was Kelso from that 70s show. It was
Yeah.
like, they've got a car that runs on water. And, like that was the era where people just kind of lost faith in the governing bodies more than they already had. I mean, I don't think there was a huge amount of faith even before that, but then right around the whole, Watergate era, the shit got crazy. And, Nixon prior to that,
Well,
or
yeah,
sorry, not Nixon, Kennedy prior to that, people were just like, oh my God.
well, I think Vietnam definitely had a lot to do with it, like Gulf of Tonkin and all of that shit. Like because then it turned out like they were lying, and then people like Seymour Hersh broke a story about the I always called it Miley, but apparently it's pronounced differently, like Miley or something like that. Massacre in Southeast Asia, right? The U.S. soldiers just like walked into villages and killed women and children and shit.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things people became aware of, and they're like, holy shit, I just found out last fucking like I knew that Polynesian peoples and also Japanese fishermen
Mhm.
were in fact I always see the Japanese fishermen mentioned. I rarely see the islanders mentioned,
Mhm.
but I knew that there were some peoples affected by nuclear testing in
Mhm.
the South Pacific.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But bro, I had no idea that they straight up like these people are being like fucking suspicious. They're like, wait, you're telling me to go back there like a day after like there's these like toxic plumes of smoke and like chickens and dogs and somebody's pet fox. I heard they had a domesticated fox that
Hell yeah.
died. That was probably a higher profile story also because like it was a fox, so it was interesting to people. But it
Chickens are
also
cool.
shows that a lot of different animals, like chickens, have notoriously bad respiratory systems. I think we might have talked about this before,
Mhm.
but mammals have generally better respiratory systems. So, like, if a fox also dies, then it's like a chicken. You're like, it's a fucking chicken, right? Um, it would die if somebody sneezed, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, which is not to say it's not tragic. Fish dying, aquatic animals are susceptible to all sorts of toxins. In fact, much agricultural toxins like aquatic toxicity is listed separately and has like really really strict standards for its use, or like I
Mhm.
should say much stricter standards for its use than something that's not uh, aquatically toxic. But my point is that like they're saying go back in, and that's exactly what they told the US government told the Marshall Islanders, and then
Right, right.
set up fucking clinics, and then periodically like took these people from the Marshall Islands and brought them to the clinics to like look at them and see how the radiation had affected them a year later, and then they just brought them in their entire lives until they died of cancer in their between I heard some died in their late teens. Most of them were dead by their mid 40s.
Yeah, I mean, it basically sounds like, the syphilis trials here in the States.
Yeah, 100%. So
Yeah.
we are totally justified to not trust them. And then the when they come out and they're like, oh, okay, it was an accident, right? And what policy is gonna I hope this galvanizes people. I said this to someone the other night. Everybody's like, we don't have a focus, or like, okay, there's an anti-war rally. Like, how do we take that energy and direct it into something? And I was like, why not just connect anti-war stuff to this infrastructure stuff?
Yeah.
I said, because I mean, in this particular space, they want to talk about fucking reparations for African descendants of slaves like every fucking day. And I'm like, okay, that's an important issue. We need to discuss it and discuss how we might do that in terms of like law and policy. Like, how does
Mhm.
it look? Right? What bureaucracy manages this? Right? If you want it done, you have to think in terms of the language and the function of the state. Right?
Right.
But you know what's not very controversial at all? Infrastructure. If you're like, let's stop fucking spending money on new fucking military hardware and new wars to use it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And let's instead fund our infrastructure. I think that could be a fucking mass movement that unites various factions in as far as like kind of right-leaning factions and left-leaning factions. It just seems to me nobody says that, like, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, it
nobody said,
sounds.
"Hell no, I don't like no parfait." No one said
I
it.
mean, very much anyone who is anti-war should be able to get along with anyone who basically wants money that otherwise goes to the military. You're all friends, get together, sing kumbaya, and then march on the Capitol.
Yeah, 100%. I think that a national movement for investment in housing and infrastructure
Right.
could get people in the street,
Yeah, well, especially with the way things are going, more of them will already be in the street, so it's a pretty easy move.
right? All right, you're back on Doc Bay 94, right?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, great. Let us move on to the NTSB.
Yeah.
This will be our last piece of this. This is not super important. I'm glad we got to talk about that distrust a bit. Oh, real quick.
Mhm.
I'll read this real quick. You don't have to bring the screen up. Um, uh, Rail workers say this was an entirely predictable consequence of Wall Street backed policy decisions and company moves that have sacrificed safety for profit.
Yep. I mean,
Maybe we can
who's
discuss that further in a second or later tonight. You're on the NTSB here?
if you are?
I am. Oh, wait.
I see
Now I
Found in
am.
Dreams still. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to scroll through this and let people know that this exists, right? Like, so this is the official narrative. This is what the federal government is saying. And
Mhm.
also there's some decent information here. What I thought was interesting is that Norfolk Southern is kind of like offering these policies like, oh, we're having water available for pickup at this church,
Can you
right?
zoom in a bit?
Yeah, but they've more or less backed out of every public hearing, and Norfolk Southern doesn't want to talk to the public because they know they'll get fucking torn apart.
Right. Well, and that's another thing that I do see on Reddit is people that are like, hey, it's not a faceless corporation. Here's 12 people on the board. Their names. We're not going to dox them because that'll get us kicked off Reddit. However, you could find out their address if you wanted to by going to by going
This
here.
link,
Yeah,
come to
yeah.
our website where
Which
we've
is
doxed
not
them.
on Reddit. Yeah, yeah.
Ridiculous. Okay. So as of right now, they're still conducting a safety investigation. So they haven't finished their safety investigation.
Right.
I found a lot of this really kind of interesting. Examine the rail car. The wheel set has been collected for metallurgical examination. Suspected overheated wheel bearing has been collected and will be examined by engineers in a materials laboratory. The tank cars are currently being decontaminated so that they can take the train car off site for a thorough examination. And this is kind of like at least in aircraft mechanics, like they had a whole career field that specialized in structural stuff, and one of the tools they used was fucking x-ray machines. Like
Yeah.
they passed aircraft parts and they'd x-ray them looking for little fucking fractures and shit.
That's like I was talking about on our last episode with pipelines and stuff like that. Where like you can
Yeah.
go foot by foot and just look for when we were talking about neutron embrittlement, you can look for
Yeah.
those weaknesses and look for those cracks.
Yep, 100%. The vinyl chloride tank car top fittings including relief valves, were removed and secured in a locked intermodal container pending NTSB investigation. Once they're examined, they'll be shipped to Texas for testing, which will be conducted under the direction. So they have like a company in Texas that will like be like, oh yeah, this was not fitted right, or this wasn't maintained or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then also locomotives have a black box like planes do.
Right. Yeah.
Inward facing image recording data. I don't know. I guess it's really important if you're a train conductor. I would hate to do my job with a camera in my face. It was bad enough that everything I fucking said was recorded. That's why usually, like, if you wanted to keep things like off the record, you always give them a phone number because the phone wasn't recorded, unless you call. You could dial through the voice switch, and it would be recorded. The voice switch was recorded, so you had like a keypad and you could dial out on it if you wanted it recorded, like for cover your ass. But if you just wanted to talk to someone who like had a minor deviation or something, or like a student who's doing a test flight and was kind of fucking up, you can kind of be like, hey, have your instructor call me. Me like, like you might want to do a couple more hours with them before you send them up again. At any rate, so there's that. And I wanted to also bring up this. Bam, share this tab instead.
Yeah.
Because this is the EPA, where you can find information. I like the way the EPA structures it, because instead of just a press release, it's a what do you call that? Like a living document kind of press
with
release.
Updates.
Yeah, where the other one was just like a press release, and then someone's got to write a new fucking press release, right?
Yeah.
In this, they're just like, all right, we'll just give you an update once a day. And they just put date. Here you go. Anyway, they've sampled 21 drinking wells, 459 homes. With another 28, we're going to be done today. You had, here, Norfolk Southern bringing bottled water to East Palestine, and the city of East Palestine will help distribute as needed.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah. So, and then you're going back in time, right? So, So, they're no longer monitoring the air, which makes sense because the fire is out, and the fire was out several days before that. And then they've been doing air rescreenings. This is where people were saying, I don't know if it's safe to come back. And they were like, they've been screening. So it's not like they're not looking at it, right? And here is the thing about mistrusting government. I don't trust the fucking media-facing statements from the government at all. But the people who are on the ground that are employed by the federal government are just people who like having a good fucking job with good pay and a good pension and other miscellaneous benefits of federal employment. And many of them are fantastic at what they do. And they really give a shit. And they are there doing that work with integrity and honesty because they take pride in what they do.
Right. I mean, it's just regular folk like you and me, might not love their job, but they want to be good at it.
Yeah. They got an environmental science degree or like a biology or chemistry degree. And I said, I don't really want to go to grad school, right? or whatever. I don't want to work for a pharmaceutical company. And generally pharmaceutical companies, you would need a master's, I think. Say if you got an environmental science degree and a minor in chemistry or something, fucking get picked up at the EPA and fucking have a great 25 or 30 year career and retire with like a fucking $70,000 a year pension or whatever, right? Like, but they still take pride in what they do.
The very end of your highlighted section, it says phosgene, which we discussed earlier, and hydrogen chloride. Hey, that's
Hydrochloric acid.
Yeah, that's hydrochloric acid.
That's why they were saying a lot of the people who have said, "Oh, I had a hard time breathing," this that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, and I haven't seen this anywhere. I saw someone talking about it. I guess it's the combustion of vinyl chloride. Like one of the byproducts is hydrochloric acid. So there is, instead of like, you know how like combustion has like water vapor.
Yeah.
Like that's in the burning process somehow.
Yeah. I mean, burning is just a chemical
vinyl is
reaction.
a hydrocarbon, right?
I believe so. Yes.
I don't actually know. I mean, a plastic is a hydrocarbon, so there's
Yeah,
hydrogen
yeah.
carbon in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't
There's
know
a
the
reason that we
exact
have them. Let's see.
Go to PubMed and look at the fucking molecular structure of vinyl chloride.
I'm on it.
PubMed has the fucking little diagrams and shit. The molecular diagrams, they're cool.
It is H3C2Cl.
C2CO.
Cl. So it's two
C.
carbons, 3 hydrogens, and a chloride.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically, anytime something burns, it's just a chemical reaction with oxygen.
Yeah.
And so oxygen is probably freeing some of the hydrogens and freeing some of the carbons, forming carbon dioxide and water, and then you get the remainder, which is HCl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not pretty.
Yeah, I think it's part of the byproduct, one of the vapor products that come off of it. It's like, so yeah, that's probably what killed a lot of things, most likely, right? Like, because I think,
well, yeah, and
go ahead.
You were discussing the water life hydrogen, or the hydrogen chloride is going to want to go back into solution and become hydrochloric acid again.
Yeah.
And so as soon as it finds water, it's going to go back into an aqueous solution.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, see, you're saying hydrogen chloride gas, and then it would
gets into the water and becomes
okay.
acid.
I was just assuming that it was part of like a vapor, like the chemical reaction of the combustion. Part of those combustion products were combining to make gaseous, or basically like hydrochloric
it is a gaseous
acid
form.
As a gas, yeah.
But then as it interacts with water, it will go back into solution, and it's just going to acidify the water slightly or a lot, depending on how much you have. But it's not great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so they've been air monitoring and testing wells. So I did want to show that. All right, we can go back to 94. Unless you wanted to take a look at the sacrifice safety for profit. I don't think we really need to.
I mean, I think we all know that we're sacrificing safety for profit every day.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there were some details that were kind of important to it. Yeah, come over here. We need a name
basically,
for my screen.
Your feed. Basically, the cost of an early retirement is that people somewhere have to suffer.
Right. And so basically, like this article also at Common Dreams talks about how rail workers, one of the rail unions, which one is it? I should say somewhere. Railroad Workers United says the root causes are the same ones we've been signaled out repeatedly, associated with hedge fund initiated operating model known as precision scheduled railroading.
Overworking people.
Yeah, and so precision scheduled railroading is just kind of like an efficiency measure that investors were like, squeeze more profit, be more efficient kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I thought some of this was kind of interesting in terms of like how it happened, regardless of the NTSB not finished X-raying metal and stuff. Is this 40% of the weight of the train was grouped at the rear third, which has always been a bad practice and more dangerous with longer, heavier trains. Why are the trains longer and heavier? Well, because of this precision scheduled railroading, one of the things they've done is add cars. He says the short-term profit imperative, so-called, I like this, cult of operating ratio, Because it is, because fucking capitalism is a fucking death cult. And like
It
they
is.
literally like sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I like the cult of the operating ratio because it makes it sound as fucking banal as it is, right? Like it's literally just like a fucking calculation, a ratio. So they said that it's a profit imperative that has made cutting cost, employees, procedures, and resources the top priority. Of course. So at any rate, they're putting more cars and they're trying to speed it through and use fewer crew members to save money. And they did the bad practice of putting the heavy cars on the back. So when the train needs to brake, all that weight's behind it. It's like if anybody's ever fucking pulled a trailer, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Like if you try and like say you cross the summit coming south out of Oregon, right? If you're pulling a trailer and you fucking brake, like it starts to fucking like fishtail, right? One of the technologies that allowed them to stack more cars and go faster that I read about is supposed to be a technology that helps braking across the cars, but I don't think it's implemented universally.
Oh.
It's kind of like, you know, how the government's always like, okay, we're going to make this rule, but we understand it might
We're going to
cost you some
grandfather
money,
everyone
so we're going
in.
to like give you 10 years to do it. Just like that fucking junkyard in Chico, man. They gave those motherfuckers 10 years to move that thing.
Yep.
Because they decided, like, hey, it's in a residential neighborhood. We don't want this here. Like there's like a fucking school, like just up the block. And then I think also part of it is about beautifying that part of 20th Street so that like tourists going to the fucking brewery don't have to see the fucking poverty.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I think that has a lot to do with that because it's pretty much right across the street from the brewery. And so I always have my suspicions that it was a part of a beautification program for that segment. So people coming off the freeway going to the brewery that have to go up to the light to flip a bitch or make a U-turn, they don't have to look at the poverty. But at any rate, yeah, no duh. They totally put the profits above people. But at the same time, as that lady said in the other clip, the CBS clip, I think it was, it's also going to happen no matter what, right? But you're right. It says elsewhere in here that RWU is for nationalization, and it's like the first fucking thing when people started talking about it. I was like, you know, they're like, oh, I hope the government, forces his company to pay restitution or whatever. And I was like,
that is not what the
no, in my
government's for.
experience, they don't. PG&E never fucking paid out the damage they did in the Tubbs fire and the Camp Fire.
Nope.
No,
that is not their job. Their job is to make sure that we keep getting our nice shit
dividend
and shareholders get their dividend. Yeah, it's all one and the same.
Right. So at any rate, I was like, well, how about for fucking punishment? You're like, here's your gigantic ass fucking fine, and if you do not pay this, then we'll just start taking your assets and we just nationalize the fucking rail. And then maybe we can give railway workers like fucking sick time.
Didn't we already do that?
What?
I think during the Civil War.
During the Civil War, we gave them sick time, 6 days. I think that I accidentally.
No. I'm sorry. The national, you closed it. The nationalization of the railways. Yeah, 1917. For World War I, we nationalized the railroad system.
Okay. Yeah. No.
So it could be done. We could do it.
Except the problem is they give it right back.
Yeah, they did. It was within a decade, I think.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this last bit about this song, GG song.
Yeah, 1920. Which bit is that?
We're moving on to the last section. So, all right, now that we've talked about the train, we're going to talk a little bit about the FCC appointment. There was a Senate hearing to review Gigi Sohn, I believe is how she pronounces her name. She was Biden's nominee, back when he first took office. And I guess she got time in front of the Senate a few times during 2022, but was never confirmed.
Mm.
And right now it's split between 2 Republican appointees and 2 Democratic appointees. The acting chair, I forget her name, is amenable to net neutrality and net privacy stuff. And this Gigi Sohn is also she's on the board of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, I believe. She says in her testimony to the Senate, which is a digital rights advocacy group. And among other things, but she's been, I guess, a longtime advocate for public broadband and net neutrality, and kind of otherwise reining in big tech and making the internet more democratic, or at least more free and open.
Okay.
At the same time, in the Senate hearing today, the section I watched, she was like, the senator asked her a question. I forget who it was. Somebody that doesn't make the news headlines very often. She said, "Oh, what do you think about Edward Snowden?" And then her response was, "Oh, he's a Russian asset." So already, she's fucking sus as fuck. But if she wants to advance net neutrality, that would be great. And of course, like Democrats are like, she would be the first gay person on the FCC.
What does that fucking matter? All
It
right.
doesn't, but they like to parade around their shit.
Okay.
So you're on which one?
I've got it on my feed, but I can take it over to yours.
No, please. You can go through this article or scroll. I just wanted to read off the headlines and explain who she is.
Yeah. We've got she's an FCC alumna. Served to Obama for Tom Wheeler. And he took her on, even though he didn't, like her criticism of the commission's prior leadership for failure to institute net neutrality. Imagine that. Of course, then we had Ajit Pai. That's great. It really does sound like her main focus is that net neutrality. They're not really talking about much else than that. But I mean, if you can give me net neutrality, some broadband infrastructure, and lower prices on that broadband infrastructure, I'll take it. It's a good start. We can use the broadband and the net neutrality to then begin fomenting changes, since we'll be able to communicate better with everyone.
And here another thing they said she has a lot of is ties to. She's been in and around Washington as a nonprofit
she's an
advocate.
insider.
Yeah, and so she has a lot of connections, which unfortunately the world we live in, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So the fact that she could potentially help gain make these things politically palatable. Because the FCC is a rules-making body, but it's still heavily constrained by Congress. So if she sees something in the FCC rules that needs to change, she might be able to make some phone calls and help move through some legislation to the effect.
Exactly. Yeah. It definitely sounds like her major push is going to be the net neutrality, and then just if you can get that really tuned in and set in stone, then the people that come after her are going to have their work cut out for them, because they really won't be able to take that away. I'm really hoping. I don't know what she can do in terms of infrastructure. I think because that's spending, so that doesn't fall within their purview at all.
No, but I think that Joe Biden's infrastructure plan, there's money, I think, that has been discussed. Who knows? I don't know the exact details, but there is money proposed to go to this. That's why they want to have people in place. at the FCC that will help facilitate that in terms of like rules making and stuff.
Oh, gotcha. Ooh,
Yeah.
she had a podcast,
Mm.
Tech on the Rocks.
Typically quick to pick up the phone and crystallize a policy position as a soundbite. She may have to pull back from her most public pronouncements. I think I'm like I said, her thing about Edward Snowden being a Russian asset is fucking red flags to me. But
Yeah.
if she got in there and did this, dude, Ajit Pai and Trump era regulators at the FCC, they actively sought to hand, while also like Trump was, they're complaining like the fucking mainstream media hates me, Twitter hates me, they just want to silence us. You want to give them the power to fucking do that to everybody. Right?
Okay.
Isn't
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
net neutrality? They could literally just be like, Common Dreams is already probably throttled, right? Because I had to
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
in Common Dreams because I typed in this story and keywords I remember from reading the article early, and it wasn't on the first 2 or 3 pages. And I had to literally type Common Dreams in, and then with the other search terms intact, and then it came up.
That's more. Yeah, I mean that can fall within net
Because it's
neutrality,
all
but that's
mainstream
also
media. The NTSB was one.
yeah.
And then everything else was like CBS, ABC News, Fox News, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And is that just part of their COVID era, like anti-disinformation that we're only going to put up like mainstream media first?
I mean, it could be that. It could also just be that is what people know and that's what they search, and so that's what gets indexed the most.
Mm.
Yeah, they want to give you stuff that is popular because it's popular. I mean, that's really what it boils down to for most of the search engines is they're going to give you what is referenced most often because it's most likely to be useful. But that doesn't really work when it comes to something like politics where there's a lot of misinformation. That might work for like how do I fix a creaky door or how do I give my dog CPR? Like hopefully the things that are most informative pop to the top there. But when it comes to like, can I trust Sleepy Joe Biden? Like whatever's mainstream is probably going to pull up there just because so many people click on it.
I see.
He
I would
is.
click on a headline that called him Sleepy Joe.
He is pretty sleepy.
You want to come on my feed?
Oh yeah, just watching that video. I watched the whole thing, and he is just hard to listen to. I don't think it's too much
Did
to
you hear
ask
how much
for.
he slurs, dude? Like he can't
Yeah,
even enunciate. And I get it. I fuck up sometimes
he's
too. But like,
well. He probably doesn't have all this, his real teeth and everything, and just I don't think it's too much to ask for a few more people not in their 60s and above in politics. Like, just make the government a better representation of the people. And I'm not just talking about skin color and ethnicity. I'm talking about age. Like that is a
well,
massive
they would
problem.
make the argument that fucking Obama was young, and Obama was a big piece of shit too.
Yeah. But I mean, he's one example, just like he was one black man, one, does not make it perfect and does not make it.
Well, you can't even
equal.
run for office or run for president until you're 35.
35, yeah. But I mean, president's powerful and has a lot of shit going for him, but like,
Oh, Hunter, I think
yeah,
I think having fucking quotas in Congress would be great.
yeah,
Because
just,
like, or at least like a maximum age. Because like, for the vast majority of things, like if you're a senator and you've been there for fucking like Dianne Feinstein, fuck, dude, she doesn't know what the fuck is going on. And I've made this joke before, and it's appropriate to the subject of net neutrality and the internet regulation period. Most of those people have been in Congress before the internet as we know it was a thing.
right.
They've all been serving in public office longer than this was a thing. Because the internet really kicked off with like AOL and shit, right? Like in the 90s, early 90s.
Yeah, it was like 1993-ish because I was in like 7th grade, 8th grade.
I don't know if Dianne Feinstein was in Congress by then, but she was definitely in politics.
Pretty sure she was.
Check it out. I think she might have been Attorney General of San Francisco at that time.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. Let's see. She was a senator since 1992. So yeah.
Oh, she has been in the Senate longer than the internet's been a fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it's
or
funny,
at least
and
since it was mainstream.
That'll be fun. Well, actually, even though I don't really give a shit about electoral politics, I would be interested to see if anybody's like who's going to replace it's ultimately the person that replaces her is going to be exactly the people that the fucking Democratic Party and their corporate donors want.
Exactly. Who will be the next person that serves a fucking 30-year term?
Yeah, and they will. They'll select someone who's younger.
Yeah.
To take that spot and then hold it for 40 fucking years. Excuse me. Come over my feed.
We're there.
To this article here and see on CNET.
Yep. We're there.
I just think this is a cool picture. Oh, what's up with those fucking pants, bro? I know I'm always judging people's style.
You are, man. And their looks and their appearance. And if they're women, their hotness. You're very
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Just think about the last video we did where you commented on, they get a pretty face and the guy falls apart.
Oh.
Yeah, you're pretty bad.
I was just saying that people don't fucking question some people.
So many ads. Oh my God.
I am an ad machine. So with new appointees from President Joe Biden firming up a Democratic majority at the agency, reinstating Obama-era net neutrality rules thrown out under the Trump administration will be a top priority. Net neutrality is the principle that all traffic on the internet should be treated equally, regardless of whether you're checking Facebook, posting pictures to Instagram, or streaming movies from Netflix or Amazon. It means companies like Comcast, which owns NBC Universal, can't favor their own content over that of a competitor. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Supporters of net neutrality say rules are necessary to ensure broadband companies aren't taking advantage of their power over the infrastructure that delivers content to your internet-enabled TVs, laptops, tablets, and smartphones. But broadband companies and Republicans in Congress and on the FCC say the old rules gave the agency too much power, stifling broadband investment. So that's kind of a code for, well, if we allow them to throttle and prioritize their own stuff or make people pay them for priority, which isn't that how fucking Google AdWords works?
You can indeed pay to have your content put up above others. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Boy.
Anyway, here's her name, Rosen Worcel. She's a permanent chair of the FCC. Gigi Sohn had her Senate confirmation hearing in December and now awaits votes. I thought she had another one. This must be an old article. Oh yeah, this is from over a year ago. I'm sorry. Right, so this is a little old, but I did include it here to have the definition of net neutrality because I'm not super literate on it. So at any rate, that's it. And then they talk a lot about fucking Joe Biden. How lame is that? You can come back to 90 or 94.
Yeah, and the thing is, the whole talk about infrastructure and all that, it would stifle innovation, blah, blah, blah. It's a fucking smokescreen, man. Broadband providers were given billions years ago to improve infrastructure. They said, thank you very much, government, pocketed it, gave it back as bonuses to the CEOs and the shareholders, and never made the improvements. It's plain for all to see. You can look it up.
Yeah. Do you want to come back to my feed?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Lastly, last article or a little tidbit of the evening. Got this article from Gizmodo, which I think is another tech magazine, right? Like CNET?
It is. Yep.
How much money Big Cable gave the politicians who oversee the internet? Because one of the things with this Gigi Sohn hearing and appointment is that Ted Cruz, too bad HBO would fucking flag us because John Oliver has quite a few Ted Cruz nursery rhymes that are fucking hilarious.
Oh
I
yeah,
do not
yeah.
like this man, Ted Cruz. Check him out, HBO.
You
He
can
should be
find it
back
on
on now,
YouTube for free.
actually. What's that?
You haven't seen new episodes yet.
He went on vacation.
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah. They
they
did a
take
trailer for
so
the new
much
season.
time off on that show.
They do. That's
He's
the
gone
beauty
for
of
4
being
months, and then he
rich.
comes back and does like fucking 4 episodes. He's like, "All right, we'll see you in 2 months." We're like,
Yep.
"What the fuck, man?" I mean, I guess they're working. It's probably really hard to do those stories and piece all that shit together.
Oh yeah. Well, and then if you look
Especially when
at
he spends all his
similar
money on fucking erotic rat art and frog statues.
and other things, he definitely bought up
Given
a
to
bunch
food bank.
of. Well, he definitely like food banks. He bought up, medical debt and or
Yeah.
all sorts of things like that for pennies on the dollar.
So I wanted to real quickly. Ted Cruz came out swinging.
Oh,
Right?
yep.
Of course. Wait, Democrats and Republican alike received over 8 million from the 4 major telecom companies in 2014 election alone. For some context, the top 5 pharmaceutical groups spent only half as much in the same cycle. Telecoms are giving the government more. Everybody talks, oh, big pharma, they're in the pockets of big pharma. Here's the most insulting fucking part about this, right? We're like, I just want to have affordable broadband because everything is done by the internet, including registering your car.
Yeah.
Like, and paying your bills. All of that shit happens online, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to be able to have that service. And we're not even demanding fucking broadband. I mean, I kind of want it as a public service, but at this point we would settle with like affordable and reliable and neutral, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like if I have to pay out $40 a month to have high-speed internet access, I will do that. But the thing is that like how much do you think it costs to buy a politician?
Not a lot. I've seen it as low as $10,000.
Yeah. And isn't it remarkable here that like as much as everybody says Big Pharma owns Congress, Big Pharma gave less than telecom. In fact, only half as much, at least in the 2014 election cycle. It would be nice to see an industry breakdown. I might look for that, and we'll have to cover it in the future of like how industries are giving from cycle to cycle. And is big pharma and big ag really the big ones? Is the military industrial complex the biggest one? I don't know. So anyway, I just wanted to show this because I heard about Ted Cruz crying about it. And so here are the 2 committees that oversee who oversee the FCC. The Senate subcommittee on communications, technology, and the internet, and the House subcommittee on communications and tech. Almost all of whom have received campaign funds. You ready for this?
Ready.
Here is the Senate subcommittee on communications, technology, and the internet.
1,000.
Subcommittee members, Republicans. Look at dude, Verizon doesn't even like Amy Klobuchar. How do you like that shit? This is obviously old. Claire McCaskill is not in Congress anymore. So
yeah,
this is old. Take it with a grain
Yeah.
of salt. However, look at what they're buying them for.
yeah. It's very little.
50 grand spread across a trade to what's TWC? The Weather Channel? No. Time Warner Cable. Sorry. Time Warner Cable. That's what it is.
Nice.
And what's NCTA? Is that I think it's a lobby group, right?
The Internet and Television Association.
Okay, NCT. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's an industry group or lobby group.
Yeah, yeah.
And then AT&T's a company, Verizon's a company, Comcast, and Time Warner Cable. All telecoms. Telecom, all 4 telecoms. I guess that is the bulk of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's more. There's, of course, you have like
Little
Spectrum
regionals and
and
shit.
some other ones. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't call Spectrum little, but obviously they're too little to fit here.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Okay, and then the industry lobby, dude, 10 grand a piece for the chairman, of course, the chairman. And that's why people want appointments like that, I heard. Is
Right.
because if you get to be the chair of the committee, then they give you more money.
Well, look at fucking Cory Booker. He's not a chair. He gets almost as much as that other guy.
That's true. But he was running for president around this time, I think. When
Yeah,
was
and so was Amy Klobuchar. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 2014. That's exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Booker didn't run in
No, they were
16.
2016.
Klobuchar
Or no,
and Booker
2020.
were
2020.
in 2020.
2020. Yeah.
Yeah. So there
they're
might
probably
have been
worth more
other
now.
reasons. But that's just the Democrats. And then the Republicans. Guess what?
Ted Cruz. Look at him.
Okay. Yeah, Ted Cruz is on there. This is the Senate. But my point being is that, like, poor Maria Cantwell. Why doesn't the telecom love her? But I did think that was funny that not even fucking Verizon doesn't even like Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah.
Oh God, how
Nobody's
fucking
going to vote
obnoxious.
her. I think it's interesting that they included this person here, Maria Cantwell,
Mm-hmm.
who took no money. And it's like, okay.
Well, no,
this
they're
is not a
including
list.
her because
Okay.
this is all the members of the committee.
Oh, the committee. Okay.
Yeah, and so
okay.
she's like literally the only person on the fucking committee that didn't get a dime from telecom. The only person overseeing.
Well,
the
it raises the
FCC.
question: does she just not need to be bought, or is she unbuyable?
I do
'Cause
not
it can
want to
go
go
either
into
way.
it because we're in our last minute. I kind of let this get away from me joking around about it. But I will look up Maria Cantwell and find out why she's the only person that oversees the internet and telecom companies that doesn't take their money. Because that is interesting. I don't know who she is, but she's from Washington. She might not even be in office anymore. I don't know. I'll look into her. Okay, so that's just the Senate. And I did want to point out, too, that if you look at how much Republicans receive total and Democrats, it's pretty comparable. Dean Heller in Nevada was the big taker here, right? As much as the chair. Okay. And then now the House.
Oh, they don't get as much.
Oops.
Poor guys.
This says time to go. So anyway, they don't get as much because they're in the House. But no, some of this is still pretty comparable. I think if you added these up and averaged them out, it would be less. But not by much. But the Republicans in the House look like they get pretty decent hauls.
That's 50, what it. Geez, 54. Yeah.
Who's that guy?
They're making up. They're making up for the Democrats over there.
Yeah, I think a lot of that. I don't know why that might be. But you got all these fuckers in here. Mike Pompeo when he was still in the House. I mean, that piece of shit. Yeah, lots of people. Steve Scalise, that piece of shit's still there, taking big. So out of all the House and the Senate subcommittees that oversee the internet and telecom, out of all of these dozens of names, one person at the time of this writing did not take fucking any money from them. And it's all comparable. It's just like write him a $30,000 check, write him a $25,000 check.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. So policy that affects us in a real big fucking way can be bought for as low as $3,000 Time Warner Cable gave Deanna D. Jetty of Colorado.
Yep.
And then she will make
$1,000
on
to
behalf
Bruce
of
Braley.
Corporate greed instead of us having access to what is at least now a basic right at this point. Like we need the internet to function. You can't get information most of the time without the internet, right? Like
yeah. Like we couldn't be mad about this if we didn't have the internet.
Right. 100%. So anyway, this is why our empire is in decline. This is what, and I bet if we did this, we should have a chart like this for every fucking industry. Let's see what the train companies have given these motherfuckers that oversee train safety. Right? Let's see that. So today we talked about train safety. We talked about balloons. We talked about telecom. The whole system's corrupt. Did you have a final thought, my friend?
Oh, just that Cantwell still is in politics. Yes. She's still in the Senate.
Great. I will look her up. At any rate, this is what corruption looks like, and this is what the decadence of an empire in its final stages looks like. And this is why we don't have freedom of speech and freedom of access to the internet. And we all know that when liberty dies, it dies.
With thunderous applause.
And big fat, not even big fat paychecks, insultingly small paychecks.
Well, and the thing is, you have to wonder, like, are they going to take all this money and put it into more solid goods? Because, like, it seems like they're kind of banking on just being able to milk it dry, but then the country falls, the currency's not worth anything. So what do they all have? Bitcoin? Gold?
Nah, bro, they're just they have fucking investments that they buy land, they buy yachts and bunkers, and they're all moving to New Zealand and shit. They're buying citizenship in New Zealand. At any rate, we already gave our sign off. We will see
Later.
you again in the future.
Later, y'all.
Peace.